some point in your life, you started to believe that there is a solid self that moves through time, makes choices, and experiences reality from a steady perspective. However, if you pause and look at it closely, you will notice something unusual. Where is the self you believe you are? For centuries, thinkers, mystics, and scientists have looked for an answer. Ancient Zen masters would ask their students, "Show me the self. Where does it start? Where does it finish?" Students often struggled to locate it. It was not in the mind, not in the body, nowhere. Yet something remained aware, watching, listening, and taking in the world. Today, neuroscientists face the same issue. They examine the brain expecting to locate a central command center, a CEO of consciousness, a single guiding eye. But instead, they find billions of neurons firing, a steady flow of electrical signals, thoughts forming, memories flickering, and emotions coming and going like waves, all without a controller. Yet you still feel like someone, a continuous story that declares, "This is me." But what if that is only another thought? Observe carefully, and you'll notice that the self is not an object. It is an ongoing process that rebuilds itself every moment, a narrative presented so convincingly that you never considered questioning it. The philosopher David Hume recognized this many centuries ago. He discovered that when he searched for a permanent self, all he encountered was a mix of thoughts, perceptions, and sensations that were always changing and never fixed. Now, here is an important point. If the self is merely a story, an illusion that appears from moment to moment, then who is the one observing it all? Who listens to the voice in your head? Who pays attention to the thoughts and the feelings? This is a point where words fall short. Because whatever it is not an object, not a person, and not even something that can be clearly defined. It is simply awareness, quiet, limitless, and always present. Ancient spiritual traditions referred to it as the witness, while scientists call it the field of consciousness. No matter the name, the fact remains. The person you believed yourself to be is merely a character in a dream, a story emerging within something much larger. And the moment you recognize this, everything changes. The worries, the fears, the doubts, the need to prove yourself, they lose their power because the part that clung to them was never truly real. This does not mean that life stops. Your body still moves, thoughts still occur, and feelings still come and go. But now you find a gap between you and your experiences, a gap that offers you freedom. This is why Zen monks laugh when they achieve enlightenment, because what they had been seeking, for which they struggled, was never missing. It was present all along. It was in the act of observation itself. So the key question is not, who are you? But rather, what has always been here? Consider the idea of control. You go through life believing that you are the one making decisions, the one who thinks, and the one who chooses actions, the one in charge. Let's examine this more closely. Now try a simple decision. Raise your hand. You just did it. You felt as though you made the choice to move, but what truly occurred? Neuroscientists have been researching this for years, and their findings are quite surprising. The decision to move was not made at the moment you felt you had chosen to raise your hand. In fact, your brain began the process milliseconds before you even noticed the urge to do it. This shows that the conscious part of you, the voice that says, "I just decided to do that," comes in too late. The movement was already in progress before the thought surfaced. So who actually made the decision? Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer put it plainly. A person can act on what they wish, but they cannot choose what they wish for. Try predicting your next thought. You won't succeed. It comes independently from nowhere. if you don't control your thoughts or the impulses behind your actions, then what exactly is this you that believes it is in charge? This is the point where the idea begins to break down. The notion of control is reassuring. It makes you feel as if you have the power to direct events, as if you are at the helm. However, if you observe carefully, you'll notice that life occurs naturally without any effort. Your heart beats on its own, your breath moves in and out, your body processes food, and your brain creates emotions, all without your intervention. Even your personality is shaped by genetics, experiences, and conditioning. It was never something you selected. It is as if life is unfolding on its own, and the you in the middle is merely a character watching events, taking credit for what was bound to occur. This is the message that great mystics and sages have been teaching for centuries. Taoists refer to it as Wu Wei, a state of action without effort, where you do not force or control, but simply go with life as it comes. Buddhists call it anatta, the recognition that there is no fixed self, and that what you consider to be you is merely a collection of ever-changing perceptions. Still, despite this, the illusion continues. Why does this happen? Because the mind cannot accept that it lacks permanence. The self, built on thoughts, must believe it is real. It insists on taking ownership, telling a story, and justifying its own existence. Yet if you sit in quiet observation without getting involved, you will notice this. Thoughts occur, but they are not truly you. Feelings come up, but they are not who you are. Your body moves, breathes, and acts, but no one is in control. There is only life unfolding, and when you understand this, the need to control disappears, fear diminishes, and stress loses its hold, because the part that fought to keep everything together was never really present. This moment is often called liberation, not as a mysterious occurrence, not as an out-of-body experience, but as the clear understanding that you were never apart from life itself, that you are not the voice in your head, not the label on your ID, nor the story you have told yourself. You are the one observing everything, the background in which all events come and go, and that completely alters your perspective. Consider the idea of the watcher. It seems as if there is a version of you inside your head, observing through your eyes, similar to a pilot in a cockpit, directing every move and making decisions about the world. But have you ever asked yourself, where exactly is this you inside your body? For centuries, scientists, mystics, and philosophers have looked for it. Neuroscientists have charted the brain, examining every neural pathway and every spark of activity in an effort to locate the essence of you. The outcome? Nothing. There is no central command center, no small observer behind your eyes, and no stable identity hidden in the folds of the brain. Ancient Buddhist teachings suggested this idea long before modern science did. They talked about anatta, the idea that the self is an illusion, that the sense of I is just a flow of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions connected by memory, creating the appearance of continuity. Nevertheless, the illusion remains strong. Now try this. Close your eyes and picture a red apple. You can see it in your mind, right? But who is actually seeing it? Where is this inner observer located? Is it in your brain or your body? Is it even located in a fixed spot? If you continue to examine it, you may notice something odd. The more you try to find this you, the more it seems to vanish into nothing. Alan Watts once compared it to searching for the one who experiences, like peeling an onion. Each layer seems to indicate something further, but when you get to the center, nothing remains. Yet, there is still an awareness present. This is where language breaks down. because even though there is nothing that can truly be called you, the presence of awareness is unmistakable. The issue is that we confuse the contents of awareness, our thoughts, feelings, and stories, with the one who is aware. However, if you simply observe, if you allow yourself to be present, something happens. Thoughts appear and disappear, but they are not who you are. Feelings come up and go, but they do not define you. Memories, desires, and fears simply move through awareness like clouds in the sky. So what is left? Only this: presence itself, pure and unfiltered, existing without the need for another observer to take credit. This is what mystics and sages have taught for centuries. The understanding that you are not simply a part of reality, you are reality itself. Once you see this, the battle to define yourself, to cling to an identity, and to safeguard a delicate sense of me begins to lessen. There is no longer any reason to resist life, because the part that was struggling never truly existed as you imagined, not as the character in a story, but rather as the background on which the story unfolds. And when that realization sets in, even briefly, something inside you relaxes. The burden of holding a false identity and attempting to control what was never yours simply disappears. What remains is clear, vivid, lively, and free. The silent observer, which has been present all along, not as a person, thought, or feeling, but simply observing. This presence existed even before you could label it, before you learned language, before anyone defined who you are, before you began forming the identity you have now. It was with you as a child, looking at the world with open, unfiltered eyes. It was there during your happiest times and your most intense pain. And it is here right now, observing these words as you read them. But what exactly is it? You might think it is the voice inside your head, the narrator that remarks on every move you make, the one that criticizes, plans, worries, and recounts the past. However, if you examine it further, that voice is not truly you. It speaks to you, it argues with itself, and even contradicts itself. It is like a busy radio playing in the background, changing between different characters, points of view, and feelings. One moment it praises you, and the next it tells you that you are inadequate. If that voice were really you, it would not oppose itself. It would not be capable of observing its own speech. Yet, there is something even more basic than the voice, the one that notices it. Ancient traditions have named this the silent witness, the constant awareness that is always observing, never fluctuating, and never disturbed by what your mind produces. Neuroscientists have studied this as well, and their findings are astonishing. The brain continually produces thoughts, but there is no single thinker. Instead, the mind consists of many neural networks that compete, fire, and respond to stimuli. The idea of a stable self is merely an illusion produced by the brain combining experiences into a coherent story. But the further you examine, the more it becomes clear that there is no one inside actively thinking. Eastern philosophers understood this long before modern science did. Taoists described the empty mind, a space where thoughts come and disappear on their own. Zen masters would ask their students, "Who were you before your parents were born?" Not as a puzzle, but as a clear invitation to look past the mind stories and into something much greater. And here is an important point. When you start to watch your own mind with curiosity instead of identifying with it, something unexpected occurs. The thoughts lose control. The feelings that once felt overwhelming drift by like ripples on a large ocean. Even the idea of a fixed, separate self begins to weaken. Then you come to an understanding that changes everything. You have never been the voice in your head, never been the name, the identity, or the story you tell yourself. And the moment you stop pursuing an identity, the moment you drop the need to define yourself, you become more than just a person with a past. You become life itself, moving smoothly through existence. Reality was never about you personally. It was never centered on you. And yet, here you are, awake, alert, and free. Consider the self that observes itself. There is something disconcerting about looking into a mirror for an extended period. At first, you simply see your own reflection, your features, and your expression. But after some time, something changes. The familiarity lessens, and you begin to feel as if you are looking at someone unfamiliar. This brief moment shows you that the self you believe in is not as stable as it appears. Neuroscientists have been attempting to locate the exact position of this you within the brain. They have charted emotions, memories, and cognitive processes all the way down to neural firings, yet they have not found a central command center, a spot where the self sits and makes decisions. There is no CEO inside your mind, no controller behind the scenes, just a network of electrical impulses reacting to stimuli. Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." The water is always in motion, always moving. The same goes for the mind. The thoughts from yesterday, the feelings from this morning, and the identity you hold on to are always in flux, and yet you still feel like you. Here is the paradox. If the self is always changing, then what part of you remains constant? The part that is aware of these changes, the part that notices your thoughts while remaining apart from them. This is where old wisdom and modern neuroscience meet. Eastern traditions have long talked about the silent observer, the awareness that monitors the mind, the presence that doesn't get entangled in the changes of thought. And now, science confirms that the brain works on several levels. One part creates the experience, while another part merely observes it. Most people mistakenly assume that the thoughts in their head define who they are. But if that were true, then when a thought vanishes, would you vanish as well? Certainly not. Something continues, something remains watching. For thousands of years, they state that the observer is not the observed. The one who watches your thoughts is not the same as the thoughts themselves. The one who notices your feelings is not the same as the feelings themselves. The true you is not the voice in your head. It is the space where that voice emerges. And this alters everything. If you are not your thoughts, then whose pain are you experiencing when you suffer? If you are not your feelings, then who is the one responding to them? If you are not defined by your identity, then what is left? When this understanding comes, it is not merely an idea, it is something you can experience firsthand. The moment you stop defining yourself by the stories your mind produces, and the moment you take a step back to watch the watcher, the illusion starts to break apart, leaving behind something so extensive and empty, yet so complete that it defies explanation. So if there is a self that observes, who is the one observing that observer? The moment you catch sight of this, your view of reality changes. Have you ever experienced that unusual moment of self-awareness? Share your thoughts below, and if this video broadened your perspective even a bit, subscribe for more content that may change how you view everything.